So we've heard kind of about your origin stories and how you kind of got involved with Masusi, and Takaki walked us through the programs and curriculum. Maybe Elaine, if we could circle back to something a little more practical, the actual business plan, if you could kind of elaborate on that a bit.
Okay, so drawing from our experience with the North Green School, we've basically looked at some financial projections and to try and figure out what it would take to run and launch Mrs. University, but also to make it sustainable. And so we set our annual fees at $5,000, which is about a 16th of what it would take to send one of my Bright Scholarship students to a liberal arts university here in the US. And when we look at this figure, we know from basically what parents are paying at the higher level of high school, that there are a lot of middle income families that want a better education for their children that will be able to afford this fee. However, we do not want Musizi to be accessible only to a limited number of people. We want it to be accessible to a diverse range of young Ugandans. And that includes girls, it includes youth from low income communities, refugees, as Uganda has one of the highest refugee populations in East Africa, East and Central Africa.
In the world, actually.
Actually, that's
You're
true.
number 2 in the world.
This is true. And recently, I was going to say someone was going to send another one to us, but we won't say anything about that. I don't know if he qualifies for refugee. But yes, so we wanted Musizi to be accessible to more people, and that's why we launched the scholarship fund, so that we will admit students who qualify if they are bright, young. Well, they don't have to be, but if they are bright and they should be at Musizi, then they will be at Musizi on a needs-based scholarship. But we've
You want to show the operation?
yeah. So when we think about how we get this thing off the road, we think that in 2026, given that facility that you showed, we should be able to start with 50 students. And that's from our experience of starting with 30 students, and because we know that it is important to have a proof of concept. Because even though we have been working on this for 5 years and we've planned everything and we think that we've planned everything to the dot, there will still be a lot of lessons that we will learn once we hit the ground running. And with 50 students, we should be able to iterate and perfect everything as we go along. But also, most importantly, that is the capacity that that small building will be able to handle. As we progress, and as the North Green School builds its purpose-built school and begins to hand over some of these 6 properties to Musizi, we believe that by 2028, that number will have grown to 200 students, now with 4 facilities. And hopefully by 2030, we will start the development of our own campus. The accreditation process in Uganda, which is a really rigorous one that we have been through successfully, by the way, that's a nice place to clap. Just because it's a lot to get the accreditation. Is a 3-step process, and at the second step you will be allowed to admit students and be a degree awarding institution, but you're allowed to do that for a certain period of time, for about 3 to 4 years, within which time you're expected to acquire your own land and then begin constructing your own purpose-built campus. So that's why we have that at 2032, where we hope that at that point Musizi will have the capacity to educate every year 1,000 students. And
How long are the programs?
the programs are 4 years.
4.
The programs are 4 years. And from the lesson that we've learned from Ashesi and the impact that Ashesi is having in Ghana, Ashesi has a capacity of about 1,500 students. And someone might think, well, that's a drop in the ocean, you know, if you compare it to the population. But we believe in a ripple effect. And, you know, if our students, no, not if, when our students graduate, we believe that they will find employment in dignified jobs. And because they will be ethical and innovative workers, they will drive business growth in the companies that they will be in. That will result in increased household incomes, increased jobs, uplifted families, uplifted communities, strengthened local business ecosystems, and ultimately there will be reduced brain drain, because then we will be able to keep our best and brightest at home in a sky that is worthy of their efforts and their brilliance. But also, when our students who graduate and and become entrepreneurs, those students will create dignified jobs, and they will create new products and services. Those new products and services will lead to healthy market competition, which will increase the quality and productivity of services. The increased quality of productivity and services will be able to allow companies to afford to pay better salaries to better talent, and it basically will create that ripple effect. And maybe sometimes that's all you need, to educate the next generation of forward-thinking leaders. And that brings me to our name, Musizi. Some people say, oh, that's an interesting name. The Musizi is a tree that tends to be strewn across coffee plantations in Uganda. And Uganda is one of the top 10 coffee producing countries in the world. And in that plantation, the tree grows really tall and straight and allows just the right amount of sunlight, to the coffee trees, so that the Ugandan coffee berry specifically, has a really distinct and special aroma. But birds also perch on these trees, and because of that, usually wherever you find a Musizi tree, you also find various life forms, different fruit trees and that sort of thing. So our hope is that our students will be the Misizi of their communities. Incidentally, the word Musizi in close to 23 Bantu languages means the sower, to sow. So it's the sowing tree. So our hope is that our students shall be sowers of change and catalysts of growth wherever they are, feeding into that ripple effect that we're talking about. And so I would like to thank you so much for giving of your time today and sowing in, by so doing, sowing in what could be and what will be a really amazing idea. I say what will be because it was always inevitable that at a certain point nations where things don't work were going to rise up and say enough. We cannot continue doing things the way that we're doing them and expect different results, like 1,000 monkeys jumping on a keyboard and expecting a Shakespeare sonnet on the other end. It was always the case that at some point someone was going to say, let's do things differently. And I think that point has come. We here just happen to be the ones to do it, because it will happen. And what an honor it is to be the ones to have the opportunity to have this conversation about changing the future of young Africa. Thank you.